Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. In the last episode, we met our client. And what a client he is. I don't exactly remember his name, because I took a break to eat lunch. So it's kind of difficult for me to just remember the name, but yeah. He's an English he's an English language student from Japan. He's asked us to represent him, and we are going to go gather some evidence first before we come back with some good news. So, oh, Mr. Gregson's here now. What's the Japanese delegation doing here? Oh, Inspector Gregson! This isn't on the tourist trail, as I'm fairly sure you're well aware. Yes, of course. We're here to investigate. So you've been to the holding cells then. What do you make of the criminal? He's not a criminal, as you put it, Inspector. He's a suspect. We'll see about that. You Japanese like to stick together, I suppose. Well, do what you will. Doesn't bother me. Bloke's in court tomorrow, whatever happens, and the verdict's a foregone conclusion. Ugh, stone cold air of rejection. Take heart. London at this time of year is full of stone cold air. That makes it worse somehow. Alright, well, we'll talk to you a little bit first. What about Scotland Yard? Tell me about Scotland Yard, Inspector. Ever since I read about it in the Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, I've been fascinated by the place. The Yard is the most sophisticated policing organization you'll find anywhere in the world, man. Oh, and you know, I've always dreamt of wearing a real Bobby's helmet. It does make them look the part, seeing that policeman there with his helmet on. You certainly get the sense that this is a man who will take no nonsense in his duty of protecting the city. Oh yes, doesn't he look wonderful? Being a London Bobby is hard going, I can tell you. Oh really? First thing in the morning, you know what he does? Goes round and rouses all the labourers on his beat so they can get off to work. What? He wakes people up? Yep, raps on the windows with a long pole. Did it myself going back a bit. I had no idea. Bobby works for the people of the town. It's just another one of his duties. After that, he starts tirelessly patrolling the streets all day long. He has to cover 20 miles a day. That's the regulation distance. Can't really imagine how far that is, but it sounds like a long way. Let me see. 20 miles? That's approximately the distance from Tokyo to Yokohama. On foot? That's definitely taking things a step too far. And when it gets dark, of course, he has the important job of lighting all the gas street lamps. Oh my. And I suppose in between all those duties, Bobbies are expected to investigate cases as well. And chase after criminals trying to evade the law. I'm not sure you could call it in between exactly. More alongside, but yes. They're expected to handle those jobs as well. We do have men keeling over from time to time, I admit. I'd always dreamt of wearing one of those helmets, as I said. But it's with a heavy heart that I shall have to relinquish that dream to you, Mr. Naruhodo. Your heavy heart will be my heavy head if you do. That's fun. It happened at around 5 in the evening, 2 days ago. Just there on that open bit of pavement. The victim, a young woman, was stabbed with a blade from behind. Is it right that the lady is still unconscious now? You mentioned that she's being treated in a hospital. I never said she was a lady. Truth is, unless she comes round pretty smartish, we won't be able to find out much about her at all. I suppose that means they haven't been able to take a statement from her, of course. Here's a map of the local area I happen to have on me. You can take it if you want. Really? Are you sure? It's yard policy to give lawyers, defendants, suspects the odd bit of information to go on. I haven't actually accepted the job yet, but still.
Thank you, Inspector. We gratefully accept.
Anyway, as far as we know, there was no one else on the scene other than the victim and your fellow countrymen. So who did it, do you think? Not much of a head-scratcher, is it?
Well, I know Mr. Natsume is also claiming not to have seen anyone else around, but... But just because he didn't see anyone, it doesn't mean we can be sure that nobody else was present.
I'm sorry to have to tell you, but we most certainly can be sure.
How?
Because, ma'am, the precise moment of the stabbing didn't go unnoticed.
What?
We have two very reliable witnesses, no less.
Ah!
It was a typical foggy London day, and your client obviously didn't see them.
There were witnesses now? Witnesses now. Alright. We will hear something about them. Who are these witnesses, Inspector?
A fellow and his wife, and the man's one of the most reliable and respected citizens in all of London. He's a copper from Scotland Yard.
Ah! A policeman. That might change things. And this policeman just happened to be there at the exact moment the woman was attacked?
Nothing peculiar about that, ma'am. Part and parcel of being a bobby. Catching them bang in the act and all that.
Do you think it might be possible for us to ask that policeman a few questions?
My guest, you can ask him what you like. In court tomorrow.
Oh.
No doubt he'll be summoned as a witness. So that'll give you something to look forward to.
That's that then. He's got no intention of letting us meet the man beforehand, it seems. A policeman witnessed the incident. As your judicial assistant, I must warn you that this could make our job very difficult indeed. Yeah, as a non-judicial assistant, I could also have warned me of that too. Dude, our sass is a little bit off the charts today.
Oh,
yes, one more thing, Inspector.
what?
The person who led you to the suspect, I hear that was Mr. Herlock Sholmes.
What are you bringing him up for?
Is it something I said? The color has drained from his cheeks. Uh-oh.
That twitchy Japanese bloke goes on trial tomorrow. Are you going to defend him or not?
Well,
Makes no difference to me, but I will just say this. No London lawyer worth his salt would touch that case with a barge pole.
Because the prosecution is being handled by the Reaper of the Bailey, you mean?
There's no way to save the man now. It's a waste of time trying. It is all a bit strange, though.
Sorry?
The Reaper. He hasn't appeared in court once for a good few years now.
Yes, we did hear something to that effect.
And the only people he usually bothers with are the real scum, the master criminals, the violent ones.
That's interesting as well. It's like he's got a sense of justice behind him. Master criminals? The violent ones?
That's right. He handpicks his victims, only deals with those guaranteed to go to the gallows for their sins.
But Mr. Natsume wouldn't hang for what he's accused of, surely?
That's just my point, sunshine. Yes, the young woman was stabbed, but it didn't kill her. Couldn't even say the intent was there. So this isn't the sort of case I'd be expecting the Reaper to want to sink his teeth into, for want of a better phrase.
Well, it's not exactly a minor infraction, is it?
No, there's gotta be more to it. Some reason he's taken an interest.
Really? What sort of a reason, Inspector?
You think I can tell what's going on inside the head of that Lord of Darkness? You'll have to ask him yourself at tomorrow's trial.
Really going to have to face the Reaper again? The Lord of Darkness, as he put it. And finally.
Who did you hear that name from?
Oh, well, it was Mr. Natsume who mentioned it. He said that Mr. Sholmes was with the police when they entered his lodgings. I'm sure it was the result of one of Mr. Sholmes' inspirational great deductions.
Fiddle faddle! The man's an amateur, and I'm getting sick and tired of him showing his mug everywhere.
Oh,
I don't know where he gets this information from, but he turns up at the scene of the crime, wanders around spouting incomprehensible rubbish, and before you know it, he claims to have solved the case.
yes, he's quite astounding, isn't he? He is a great help to Scotland Yard, though, isn't he?
Gibble gabble!
Ah!
Ever seen this before?
Oh, yes, that's Rance Magazine. The wonderful publication in which the adventures of Herlock Sholmes appears.
Yes, well, that wonderful publication, as you put it, sees fit to include several of the Yard's detectives in its stories. And the so-called Great Detective makes a mockery of all of us. If you ask anyone at the Yard, it's a misadventure to be included in any Herlock Sholmes tale at all.
Well, I suppose there is an element of that.
We work our socks off, every one of us, only to be frumped by the public thanks to that obnoxious detective. The man's as dangerous to us at Scotland Yard as he is to all our criminals.
That can't really be true, can it, Inspector?
Clearly, the Great Detective and the police have a complex relationship. Well then. Well, I don't think we're going to get any more useful information out of the detective.
Mr. Naruhodo, can I make a suggestion?
Oh, yes. What is it?
Well, it seems to me that we must speak with him about this.
By him, do you mean Mr. Sholmes?
Yes, Mr. Herlock Sholmes, exactly.
With those shining eyes. You can't wait, can you? Well, Mr. Natsume did blame Mr. Sholmes for all this, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He really did. Which makes him an involved party in the case. Are you just going to ignore that? I hope not. I assure you, it's not simply my selfish desire to meet with Mr. Sholmes again.
The trouble is, we have no idea of the man's address even.
It's Baker Street!
How do you know that?
It's in the stories, of course. 221B Baker Street, the most famous address in the world.
Oh, I see. Well, there's nothing to stop us from going, I suppose. We better try to find our way there before Susato-san gets any more excited and unpredictable.
Hurrah! I'll summon a carriage.
So we're to have a reunion already with the great detective, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Well, first, I'm going to check this map. So we got Calabash Road over here, Meerschaum Street, and Briar Road. And we don't know what this street is. Even though it feels like it might be important. Interesting. Alright. Let us move. Location has been added. Sholmes' suite. Onwards we go. And a cutscene with it, too.
Thank you very much. It's just up there overlooking the street. Good day. Thanks again. This is it. The residence of Mr. Herlock Sholmes.
Wow. Got a pinwheel and everything. And he does a wee bit of gardening, I see. Yep, this is about what I expected. It reminds me of the Wright & Co. law offices, I'm going to be quite honest with you. So this is where the great detective makes his living. Feels surreal to be in here somehow. Do we just barge in or something? Susato is interested in the scientific aspects. Is it as described in the stories, Miss Susato? Susato-san?
Many famous cases have been solved here in this very room.
Oh, I suppose they must have been, yes. Never read the story, so it's hard to get quite as excited about it as she seems to be.
The detective chases the villain relentlessly as he disappears into the fog down a unlit London street. Oh, the thrill of it, the romanticism. Can't you feel your heart thumping in your chest? Can't you, Mr. Naruhodo?
Oh, I suppose I can, yes.
So, if you don't mind, I'll just stand here and soak up the atmosphere for a while longer. Please, don't mind me.
She's obsessed. Right, I guess I will investigate then. Well, it looks like our detective friend isn't home at present. Excuse me, is anybody home?
Oh, do we have a visitor?
Hey, it is her. I expected as much.
Hello, is it a big new case for Mr. Sholmes?
Hello. Wait, aren't you...
Oh, how rude of me. I'll go and make some tea at once.
I'm sure it's the same girl. Miss Susato, did you see the girl who was just here?
Oh yes, isn't it truly extraordinary? To think that the King of Bohemia came to this very room to ask Mr. Sholmes to take on his case.
The King of Bowaria?
King Wilhelm Gottsreich Sigismund von Ormstein, of course.
Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Forget the adventure of Herlock Sholmes for a moment and look over there.
The tea is brewed, and I have a freshly baked cake as well. It's you.
I knew it. Susato-san recognizes her too. Yeah. Flashback. She's like probably inventor slash forensic expert. She's got like a, what is that? It looks like a cat and a rabbit on the side of her bag, her backpack. It's interesting. It's the girl who turned up at the end of Mr. McGilded's trial in the defendant's antechamber.
I've never met a lawyer from the Far East before. Poor you, having to get straight to work when you've only just arrived in London.
Oh, yes, it was challenging.
Well, try this tea. It's my special blend, you know.
I feel worried about this. I feel very worried about this. Something gives me the wrong vibe here. Thank you. Is tea supposed to look that color? Uh-oh.
Oh my, what a fragrant yet mellow flavor. Hooray, it's a winner! I tried blending different leaves designed to alleviate fatigue, you see. You must be exhausted after your long voyage here, and you have another ticklish trial tomorrow. Oh, and you're to defend a Japanese man. I do wish you lots and lots of luck.
Did Mr. Sholmes tell you about us by any chance?
Oh, you know Hurley, do you?
Hurley? Mr. Sholmes to you, Shirley? Was that like a, okay, that was a thing.
Mr. Sholmes was a fellow passenger on the boat that brought us to Great Britain, you see. Was he really? Well, I had no idea. I'm afraid Hurley's out on an errand again today, even though he's just returned from overseas.
Wait a minute. We met this girl for the first time ever yesterday after the trial, and only briefly at that. How on earth does she know so much about us? Did she deduce all those things, do you think?
And perhaps more to the point, Why is she here in Mr. Sholmes' suite? Oh, silly me. I haven't introduced myself, have I? It's a great pleasure to meet you both. My name is Iris Wilson.
Oh, you're Dr. Wilson's daughter, I'm assuming?
I live here together with Hurley.
Ah, Iris, is it? What a lovely name. What? What's the matter?
No, wait. This can't be. Did you say that your name is Wilson?
What's the matter with Susato-san? Why is she so flustered all of a sudden?
Yes, that's right. And what are your names?
Oh, I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo, a lawyer from Japan.
Oh, sorry. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant, Susato Mikotoba. It's wonderful to meet you.
Susie and Runo, I like her nicknaming. Alright.
Lovely, Susie and Runo. Got it. Susie?
And Runo? There's more to this girl than meets the eye. I have so many questions for her, I don't know where to start.
Yes, and so do I.
I'm guessing you got Sholmes and Watson. Well, you got Holmes and Watson. This is probably Sholmes and Wilson. They changed the wordage a bit in the names. So about yourself. It was you that we ran into yesterday, wasn't it? At the Old Bailey.
Yes, that's right. You were ever so helpful. Thank you so much. Oh, no, not at all. I'm sorry we couldn't have been more welcoming.
Though at the time, we did have a rather large gun pointed at us. Yeah, there it is. Oh, now it's actually pointed at us.
Like this? Ooh. Ah, thinking back now, you left with Miss Lestrade in tow, didn't you?
Oh yes, that awkward witness, Gina Lestrade.
Oh, Jenny? Yes, she's a professional pickpocket.
So we found out.
It was very naughty of her to pinch my invention like that.
Are you referring to that trail-disrupting gun-like contraption?
Exactly! So I followed her, you see, to get it back. Perhaps I should think about fitting a self-destruct mechanism in my invention.
You're gonna blow people up? This girl is dangerous.
Anyway, I brought Ginny back here after that, so she could apologize to my trusty technician.
Sorry, your technician?
Hurley, of course, silly.
Hurley?
Yes, Herlock Sholmes. We lived here together.
I had no idea the great detective had such an interesting young daughter.
Daughter? Not likely.
What?
I wouldn't call him Hurley if he was my father, would I?
Well then, what is your relationship with Mr. Sholmes?
Well, I expect you found out that lodgings of any kind in London are very expensive. So the solution is to share the cost with a partner, a roommate.
Your roommates?
I hope you don't mind me asking, Iris, but how old are you? 10 at this last year.
Oh my god, Jesus Christ. Well, what of your mother and father?
Oh no, they're not around.
Oh, I see. I wonder what the story is there. My guess is that she lived here and then Herlock moved in. That would not surprise me in the slightest if he's the one that ended up moving in.
Oh yes, there's something I must ask you. Of course. Go ahead, Susie. I am a very great fan of the adventures of Herlock Sholmes and... Oh, you have a copy of Rinsed Magazine! Yes, I read every issue. It's delivered all the way to Japan on a ship. Oh, this is so exciting! My stories are being read on the other side of the world!
My stories?
That's right. Hurley is always solving such amazing cases, you see, and he tells me all about them. They really are quite fascinating. It would be such a shame if I was the only one who ever heard them, don't you think?
She's the author. She's 10.
Goodness. Last night, he was telling me all about a new case he just solved on a steamship traveling from a faraway land. So I was just in the middle of typing up the manuscript for the next issue before you came. So you are the author. Yes, I'll let you in on a secret if you like. I'm going to call this latest adventure The Speckled Band.
The Speckled Band. That's certainly very familiar.
Of course, I always change one or two details in the stories, here and there. This time, I had the idea of making a venomous snake be the cause of all the trouble.
Oh, that was Mr. Sholmes' first thought as well, actually.
Yes, and of course I know that a snake might not be a credible fit for the facts of the case exactly, but it's a story. Some poetic license is justified to make it more thrilling, I think, don't you? So, do you mean to say, are the stories about Mr. Sholmes that are published in Rand's magazine all written by me? Yes, on my wonderful and very modern typewriter. But all the stories I've ever read are written by a doctor of medicine, Dr. John H. Wilson.
Susato-san's getting more and more worked up.
Yes, that's me. I mean, my name really is Wilson. But what about the doctor of medicine part? That's all true too. I am a doctor of medicine.
No! At 10 years old?
At 10 years old.
Well, that's quite incredible.
But Dr. Wilson is an English gentleman. Yes. I did alter the setting slightly, for the stories to be more compelling.
Oh!
Well, it sounds a little strange, doesn't it? A great detective with a 10-year-old girl in tow. I suppose it does, yes.
Poor Susato-san. She looks like her whole world is just falling apart. Hey, think about it this way, Susato. The story that she's writing right now has us in the original version. So maybe, possibly, will be known in the stories. That's very interesting. I like it. About before.
Yes? What's on your mind, Runo? Do tell me.
How did you know that I was a lawyer and that we just arrived in London? I mean, you got the armband on. You were in the defendant's antechamber. And you're Japanese.
Yes. Oh, and that we have a difficult trial tomorrow. How did you know all of that? Oh, that's what you mean. Please, tell us how you did it. Explain every detail. Of course, I'd be delighted. Although, there's really no mystery. Now, let's begin.
Oh boy.
Iris Wilson is proud to present her Logic and Reasoning Spectacular.
Oh god, she's doing it now.
First of all, I knew already that you were a lawyer, Runo. After all, I met you yesterday at the Old Bailey in the defendant's antechamber.
But you also said that we'd only just arrived in London. How did you know that?
I observed a passport and travel ticket protruding from your breast pocket.
This fucking 10-year-old is a goddamn genius.
Oh, so I was reasonably confident that you must have only just arrived in the country. And on top of that, you accepted a case against that particular prosecutor, telling me you were unaware of London's court affairs.
The Reaper of the Bailey? I walked right into that one, didn't I?
Then I noticed the red ink stamp on the back of Susie's hand. You were given that when you visited the local prison to meet with a suspect, weren't you? Earlier today. They use those stamps to keep a close eye on comings and goings, you see. I didn't realize. And a red stamp is only used for people visiting foreign inmates. So, that told me that even though you had only yesterday concluded the trial of Magnus McGilded, The two of you had already had cause to visit a foreign inmate at a local prison. However, neither of you was wearing a particularly sad expression on your face, so I concluded that the prisoner was unlikely to be a friend or a relative. That led me to believe that you must have accepted a new case.
I see.
But how could you have known that the trial is tomorrow? Well, having barely been home a few hours yesterday, Hurley solved yet another case. It obviously amused him. He told me that he caught a Japanese man who was bawling and trembling.
A Japanese man? Well, that certainly must have been...
Mr. Natsume. Now, Bruno has that fancy Japanese sword. And I think your outfit is called a kimono, isn't it, Susie? Well, anyway, it was clear to me that you both come from Japan yourselves. So I put two and two together and decided you must be defending the Japanese man Hurley caught. And there was only one conclusion those facts could lead me to. You both came here to ask Hurley about the case.
She does the same thing that Herlock does. I wonder if Herlock got that from her or whether she got that from Herlock.
There's a note on the mantelpiece that says the man's trial will be tomorrow. Hurley is always stabbing notes with a knife, you know. He is silly. And that's all there was to it, really. Thank you for listening. I'm Iris Wilson, and that was one of my great deductions.
That's a much more great deduction than Herlock has.
Well, was it a winner? Were my deductions correct?
They were spot on.
That was amazing, Iris. Truly a great deduction.
You even managed the certain something of Mr. Sholmes' delivery.
Oh, well, I was just copying Hurley's style for that. This is really very good news. You could tell us all about the case involving the Japanese man. You will, won't you, Iris? Please?
Oh boy. We will hear more about this case of the Japanese man in the next episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. That was quite the introduction to Iris and her character. I'm interested. It's very fun. It's very interesting that you see stuff like this happen in Ace Attorney games. Especially the dynamic between Iris and Herlock Sholmes that exists. We haven't seen them in the same room together, but it's definitely, you can see how they play off of one another. I really like the writing for these two and the way that they've built this all up. I'm really starting to feel this game now, and I hope you guys are too, because I'm very much looking forward to playing more of it. So yeah, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, whatever. I'm just here to play video games and upload them on the internet. If you want to help support, it does me a lot, but not necessary, because I'm just having fun doing this. So I will see you guys in the next episode, where we learn more about Iris Wilson and, well, learn more about the case at hand. See you guys.